Okay, we're going to do a walkthrough of a vulnerable machine. This is the Medjed machine by Offsec. So let's get to it. I'm going to start by creating a local variable of the IP address. Copied that weird, or pasted it weird. Okay, so this makes it easier when running commands, especially when you're running a lot of commands, daisy chaining commands. I can just pass that IP variable rather than having to remember the IP address or copy and paste, the IP address constantly. So this is just, an easier way to run scans. Something I like to do. I think it's best practice. So I'm going to call that command with the $ and then the variable name. The $ tells Linux that this is a variable and it will return the IP address. So if we didn't use the $, it would just think we wanted to return the letters, and that's exactly what it would do. So there's that. So now we're going to run nmap. I'm going to pass it that variable. So this is a basic nmap scan. It scans the most common, I think it's the top 1,000 ports. I don't remember the exact number, but it's the most common ports. So it doesn't scan everything, all 65,000 plus ports. It doesn't do that. It just scans the most common 1,000, or like I said, whatever that number is. And it runs it pretty quickly because it's not using any switches for, digging for operating system information, service information. You're not running scripts. So this is a really fast scan. And the reason I like to do this is because I like to get like a baseline of what's available and work with what I find here as I'm having nmap run a more in-depth scan, which takes a lot longer. So right off the bat, we're looking at a Windows system. These are SMB ports. We've got MySQL, and we have an alternate HTTP site. So this is the low-hanging fruit. HTTP, web applications, websites are a huge avenue for attack. So MySQL and SMB, we could definitely do some stuff with those, but I'm not going to focus on those right now. This is definitely going to be my first choice. So let's clear this port of the screen. Let's rerun nmap, but this time let's pass it a couple commands. Let's pass, or switches. Let's pass it SC. So this is telling it to run default scripts. And SV is saying look for service information. P dash is saying scan the entire port range. Again, 65,000 plus. All the ports potentially available. Scan them all. A lot of times the common port scan will uncover a lot of ports, but there's some really, you'll have some weird ports out there that aren't common, and it could just have you, going in a rabbit hole trying to enumerate and exploit a system when all you need is that one uncommon port that if you'd run, the fully open scan, you would have found. So I like to cover all my bases and run that. I just like to see everything that's there, and then from there I'll figure out, which ones I want to try to attack or work with. So tac open, that's just saying show me all open ports. I don't want noise on my screen. I don't want to see closed ports. I just want to see ports I can interact with. So let's let that run. And while it's running, let's try to go to the website. Oh, we need the port number. That would help, wouldn't it? All right, so, it's on HTTPS site. Browser defaults to that. Okay, so we've got a content management system. These are notoriously vulnerable. Oh, look at that. Barracuda Drive server. Okay, so this has to be a default install that nobody bothered to mess with or open or configure. It's actually having me set an administrator account, which is kind of crazy. This is going to make our job a lot easier. So let's do that. Admin, and we'll use the password hacked. Oh. And let's let it create that account. See how our scan's doing here. Still running. It'll take a little while. So this is kind of crazy to me. I've never seen something pop up when you go into it and ask you to create your own admin account. That's very insecure, as you can imagine. So let's go into about here. I want to know more about this thing. So this is a Barracuda Drive 6.5. I'm not familiar with this, which does happen often with these kinds of things. You run into software that you kind of have to learn on the fly. Um, so I'm going to search exploit, and I want to check for Barracuda 6.5. So there is an insecure folder permission vulnerability, and it's given to us as a text file. So this is an informational file. So a lot of times you'll see Python scripts that you can download or C files that you can compile. Um, Anything you download from here, you definitely want to take a good look at first and make sure it's not going to do anything malicious to your system before executing it. But this is just text. It's just information on how to pull off this vulnerability. So let's see. I'm going to use. I don't need to download it. So we did that already. I am going to use this -x with the name of the text file. You could put this whole path there if you want, but it'll pull it just by name. And what X is doing is it's reading the content of that file, so you don't actually have to download the file or pull it onto your system. So the insecure folder permissions. So we read here. So this is telling us that if we replace this BD file with a malicious file and restart the system, it'll run this with escalated privileges, so anything that we have in this malicious file will be executed. And then it further breaks down and shows you how to find the vulnerability. So we're using this cackles command to look at the permissions on the BD folder. It's going to tell you how to create your own C file and how to compile it. So that's pretty good. It gives you pretty much tells you exactly how to pull this off. We might take a different route though. It was adding an administrator to the server, but we could do that. There are a few things we could do I have in mind here. So let's first let's check our scan here, because we need to find a way to get that file onto the system. That's number one. I'm going to open up Mousepad. I'm going to copy here so I have this. So all right, there's a lot of information in here. This is because of the SC and SV switches that we used. So SV gave us further information about the services. You saw before we had, I cleared the screen. We had, just showing that this port was open, and I think it stopped there. So running the SV for service enumeration actually tells us the name of the company or the CMS, Barracuda server. Gives us a little more information about the service here. We've also got, so there was a hidden FTP port 321, which is not common, so that would never came up if we didn't supply that -p-. It's a FileZilla FTP server. We've got the version. It allows anonymous login, and the script also dumped the contents of the FTP folder. So there's a lot here. There is a lot to work with. This is good and bad, because sometimes this can lead you down a rabbit hole where you're just trying everything against all these ports and services, and some of them you can get nothing from, and some of them are very vulnerable. So this can make it tricky, but it also gives us a pretty large attack surface. So a lot of things we could try. So let's first poke around here a little more. So we've got a menu, we've got homepage. This in particular stands out to me. So what's this web file server about? So this is a WebDAV file server. I can connect to with a WebDAV client. So that tells me I can mount a WebDAV share on my Linux machine, and I can access this share and upload or read from it. So I can read right here. but it looks like this tool lets us do it directly from the web interface. So that's a step taken right out. All right, it looks like we may have access directly to the C drive, and we do. So that's really bad, you guys. Let's go into user, administrator. If we can read administrator, it's game over already. Yeah. Well, there we go. We don't even have to touch the system. I mean, as far as the CTF goes, the administrator flags are usually in desktop. Let's say if we can read it. Proof. Yeah, you can read the flag right from here. So, I mean, theoretically, this is it. You can capture the flags and complete the challenge. You're done. But we don't want to take the easy route. We know we can exploit this system. We've already found a vulnerability. Let's do it, right? We don't want to make it easy. So, but theoretically, like I said, you could just go right into that user folder and dump your flags and be good. So it's that simple. And I mean, obviously we have admin access to this server, so we can upload files to it. We can delete files. So this is very dangerous in and of itself without actually touching the system. There's a lot we can do. But let's focus on the vulnerability we found. So here's that BD folder, and here's the executable. Let's see if we can delete it, because then we could upload our own file. Access denied. Okay, fine. So I want a foothold onto this system. XAMPP. I'm going to check this out. So this is used. It's a combination of HTTP, FTP, and MySQL. So it provides you a way to easily get a website up and running with a backend database and FTP access. So everything's going to be in here. You'll have FileZilla, Apache, and MySQL. So there's a password file. I mean, man, just having this admin access to this system, like I said, you could see it firsthand here. I mean, we really don't need to access the system to cause trouble, but we want to gain full-blown access to the system and escalate our privileges. That's our end goal, right? So htdocs is where XAMPP holds its web files. So it can execute PHP files. Good to know. Let's try something here. I'm going to go back to the root. I want to take this PHP file and I want to see if I can execute it off the root. I can't. Okay, that's fine. What I want to do is I want to find where these files live. I want to know what port I can execute these off of, because one of these HTTP ports has to be using XAMPP and allow me to execute, but it doesn't have it revealed within the scan here. So let's try this one. Just going to leave all this information. I just want to change the port. I just want to see if I can get access to this PHP file. And there we go. So port 45332 is what points to this htdocs. So that's awesome. So what I wanted to try now is to upload a PHP reverse shell, which I've already got. So what this will do is it will create a reverse shell back to my system. But before I run it, I need to create a listener for it. So I'm going to use netcat. I'm going to tell it, don't bother with name resolution. Listen verbosely on port 4444. So there you go. Netcat is in listening mode. With any luck, we'll get a reverse shell back to our system. Nope, we will not. Okay. It wasn't so easy. Yep, got disconnect. Okay, that's fine. Let's clear this. Let's try something else then. Let's try to do a command shell. So this is going to give us RCE. So, or remote code execution, remote command execution, however you want to say it. I'm going to upload this, and this will allow us to run commands remotely against the system. And we're going to do that using the command parameter. We know this is a Windows system, so let's start with dir. If all goes well, we should be able to remotely execute this code against this Windows server. We know it's a Windows server, so dir should display the directory listing. So let's see. Here we go. So we have our CE. Awesome. So there's a lot we can do now. So we're in the context of XAMPP HTTP docs, which we figured out here. We enumerated and came across, discovered that. Who are we running as? I'm just curious. We can run any command from here now. So we're running as Jaren. Okay. So what I want to do, what I'm going to do is, let's see here. Let's make a Medjed directory, and we will go to it. All right. So in this directory, I'm going to use MSF Venom, which is, oh, well, it's got it here already. So I've run this previously. I don't even have to type it all out again. Awesome. So we want, yeah, that was right. Sorry. Let's call this malshell.exe. So what I'm doing, if you're not familiar with MSF Venom, it's a part of Metasploit, and it allows us to package our own malicious shellcode. So I'm using the Windows 64-bit library to create a reverse TCP shell to my system on port 4445. And I'm outputting that as an executable, and I'm going to call it malshell. And while it's creating that, I'm going to create a listener for port 4455. And if all goes well, this is going to open up a remote shell, a reverse shell from that Windows system to my system, thereby giving me a foothold onto the system. So let's close out of all this. Let's minimize this a little bit. Oh, come on, where are we going? There we go. All right. So I want to upload that shell. Go to home, Medjed, mouse shell. And there it is. If I could type. So this little bouncing back and forth, this little ball is indicating to me that we have a shell. So this session is kind of hung. It's sitting in an open shell. And there we are. And who am I? I am Jaren. Nets user. And I'm a member of users, so I don't have escalated privileges. So let's go to that BD folder that we saw. And let's take a look. We've got the BD executable. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to rename that to bd.old. Awesome. And then instead of creating any additional exploits or shellcode, we've already got shellcode on this system. So we're going to use what's already here. Making this, what did I do? Making this fairly simple. So we're going to take our mouse shell and we are going to copy that to, copy mouse shell to cbd as bd.exe. Okay, awesome. So the next thing we want to do is we want to shut down the system, right? We need to restart the system to re-trigger that BD executable that's going to run with escalated privileges. What that should do is it's running with escalated privileges. My guess is it's going to be running in the context of an admin user or as system. If it's system, I mean, it's game over either way, but if it's system, it's totally game over because system ranks above admin. So I'm imagining it's gonna run in the context of system. It may have told us in that file, didn't read it thoroughly, but it's gonna run that shell, and we'll have a reverse shell just like we do here, but instead of being logged in as Jaren, which we saw up here, we'll be logged in as system. That's the thought here. So we're going to restart, force it, and we want a timeout of 0 to tell it, let's go immediately. We don't want to wait. We don't want to, mess around. Just restart. We don't need any of this open anymore because if all goes well, we've got a listener for that port 4455. We're just going to see a shell open up when that system restarts. So let's just give it a couple of seconds here and hope that it works as expected. Sometimes these things don't, and you have to dig a little deeper. A lot of times with this code that you get from Searchsploit or ExploitDB or any of those places where you can get shell code and shell scripts, you have to make changes to them to get them to work right, especially with different versioning information and stuff. So look at that. We are system. We're in the context of system. I bet you, yep, we own the system right now. That's it. Game over. So it was that easy. So that really wasn't, we saw all of these open ports, which could easily have led us down a crazy rabbit hole. We could have spent hours enumerating all of these services and digging and seeing what we could find. But just following instinct and when you find one potential avenue, latching onto it and just seeing it through. I mean, look at, we exploited that in, I don't know how long that took, but it didn't take too long. So we can now go into our users. We should have done this earlier, but because this is going to be where our local file is. So this is the file for gaining a foothold. And if we go to our administrator, we have got our proof file, which is our flag for privilege escalation, proving that we escalated privileges and we own the system. So that's it. I really hope that this was informative. I try to add as I go and not just stay directly with the steps I'm taking. I try to fill in with information I've gathered over the years. So hope you guys found this useful and enjoyed it. Please let me know if you did. I'd love to hear comments, because if you did enjoy this and would like to see more of these, I can definitely do them. I could do these all day. I love doing these. They're fun. Yeah, I'm a total geek. This is fun to me. So if you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. And again, I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks for watching.